Bolt and Eleanor are 13-year-old twins. At the beginning of the novel, they're orphaned, and a man shows up claiming to be their long lost uncle, um, and in fact turns out to be kind of a murderous con man, and they have to run away from him, and that is how they start out at this circus slash carnival. Um, after they've run away from this guy. Like we were talking about earlier, I was, in a place where there weren't other kids my age, and so it was always sort of my hope, or like fantasy that I would have like a twin who would be kind of a soulmate and somebody that would, that I would understand me and would hang out with me. 1915, I think, seemed like an interesting corollary to our own time in a lot of ways. It was a time of enormous technological change. Telephones were becoming common in, ho- people's homes. Everybody was getting a car at this point. They're building roads. Um, Movies are, becoming more of a part of American culture. It's the year that Charlie Chaplin creates The Tramp, for example, which is something that we still remember. Um, and so it's sort of like the beginning of the modern age, and it's also sort of the end of the period of the Wild West. So those guys are still out there, but they're kind of become they've like Buffalo Bill Cody has become like a circus impresario. Um, he's not an actual cowboy anymore. He's just like a famous person who portrays a cowboy. Um, and so I was interested in that period of transition between, like the frontier era and the modern era. Um, and that was particularly cool because I kind of wanted to play with the Western format, as a genre, as well as, like the stuff about carnivals. So Jingling is a circus impresario who has come up from nothing, or so he claims, and he's fascinated with bringing together people who he thinks of as special or unique, and so he goes around the country gathering sort of people who he then adopts, or claims to adopt. And all these people become part of this traveling carnival. So you've got, a strong woman, you've got a contortionist, a hypnotist, clowns, et cetera, et cetera. And people, with physical uh, differences as well. I think they were all sort of based on various kinds of uh, typical sideshow performers. So there's Elmer, who has he's covered with hair, and he is based on, several real circus performers. He's called the Dog Face Boy, which is, um, I think there were several performers who had names along those lines. Um, and there's a woman who has no legs, and she's a tightrope walker. And she's also based on, like real performers. And one of the books that I read that I remember from high school, I think it came out, was called Very Special People. And it's about sideshow performers. And I remember being really fascinated by just all of the different, kind of unusual people. Do really kind of visualize the scenes as kind of a movie in my mind's eye. And I try to make the, individual scenes have details that will pop for the reader so that they'll be able to visualize. It was actually kind of fun because since it was 1915, I would not necessarily go into a room knowing what was going to be there, right? Like, where's the light coming from? And, what kind of books are on the shelf? And what are they eating? And all that stuff I had to kind of research. Because, food was different, light was different. Um, and anyway, I think visualizing individual characters um, is something that kind of comes and goes for me. Do you know what I mean? I like a lot of times my protagonist, I won't have an image of who they are because I'm like looking out through their eyes, so unless they pass a mirror, I don't usually have a great idea of what they look like. Well, I think in some ways they're both a side of myself. Like for Eleanor's somebody that likes to be alone and read, and I have to have that part of myself as well because, as a writer, you have to spend so much time alone. And Bolt, on the other hand, really wants to be with a family and with a community and to be part of things. And I have that part of myself too, where I'm like, oh, I got to stay home and write. I can't go out and get to the bar with my friends. Um, so in a way, I was having a conversation with the two sides of myself. I mean, I usually, you have to wing the first draft because it doesn't exist until you do it. And then, a lot of like big scenes, particularly action scenes, really require a lot of revision and reshaping. And I have to draw diagrams and so on and so forth. I mean, there is a shootout in the book, and choreographing a shootout I mean, is as hard on paper as it is in a movie.